This gun lights your firemen, the pilot lights out.
This football team is coming into our place. We're standing in our way.
This is a game of the heart. Focus and finish.
49ers tight end Vernon Davis had a monster game yesterday, catching 8 passes for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns, but was overshadowed by Lions tight end Joseph Fourier. If that name sounds familiar, that's because he's the nephew of former NFL tight end Christian Fourier. Now, after yesterday's 3-touchdown performance, Fourier has been targeted 9 times on the season. He has 7 receptions and 5 touchdowns. He came into yesterday owned in less than 1% of leagues, so no one owns him in fantasy, and no one covers him in the end zone. And speaking of tight ends, the best tight end in the game, Jimmy Graham, had to leave the game in the second half against the Patriots, but not before exiting without a catch for the first time since his rookie season in 2010. Truly a bizarro fantasy Sunday. Jaguars wide receiver Cecil Short said that he's injured the AC joint under his clavicle. I have no idea what the hell this guy's talking about. I'm not a physician or an expert on the human anatomy, but the AC joint isn't under the clavicle. It's the hinge for your shoulder that lets you raise your arm. So there's got to be more to this. Some are talking about a fractured rib near the sternum, or I don't know what the heck's going on. Stay tuned for more news, but it sounds like he's not going to be playing anytime soon. Rams wide receiver Tavon Austin had just 1 catch for 3 yards on Sunday. He played in just 4 snaps in the game. 4. This was the number 8 pick in the 2013 NFL Draft, and he's still owned in more than 81% of leagues. 4 snaps. Jamaal Charles is on pace to touch the ball 392 times this season. Only Arian Foster and Chris Johnson have touched the ball more in recent memory. Now, while this may be good news at the moment for fantasy owners, going forward it causes problems. Charles came into the league the same time as Chris Johnson, who's on pace to play all 16 games, rushing for all of 872 yards. CJ 872 guy? Rich get richer. Outside linebacker Von Miller's 6-game suspension is over. Over the last 2 seasons, Miller has racked up 132 tackles, 30 sacks, 8 forced fumbles, and a pick. Think about how many times Miller will be able to pin his ears back and rush the quarterback on obvious passing downs, as the Broncos will have leads and the other team tries to play catch-up. If you play in an IDP league, Miller is an instant must-have. Jets running back Mike Goodson tore both his ACL and MCL in Sunday's loss to the Steelers. He is done for the year. To me, Bilal Powell is still the best back to have in the Jets' backfield, but it's pretty low on the totem pole in terms of running back options, and that should be a last resort type of play. If you've been watching our weekend show This Week in Fantasy Football, Scott Engel has been telling you to trade DeMarco Murray before he gets hurt. Now, the King didn't like Murray's upright running style and has been steadfast that it made him susceptible to injury. Murray will have an MRI today to detail the extent of his sprained MCL, but if you didn't act on Scott's advice, you may have already lost your chance to move him. Today's Twitter question comes from @SeattleSlew, who wants to know if Percy Harvin is a good pickup. Who's editing these things? Last week we get a question from a guy in jail, and today we get one from a horse. Listen, Harvin comes off the pup list today, and to be honest, if a horse in your league doesn't already have him, you should be able to win your league with or without him. If you have a question you want answered, hit me up with a tweet, and if I don't use your question here on the show, I'll tweet you back with my best advice. And be sure to tune into the Roto Experts Fantasy Football News Notes and Analysis segment every weekday. I'll be here to keep you current and ahead of the competition, and on weekends, come back for This Week in Fantasy Football as I team up with the King, Scott Engel, covering the week that was, the week that will be, and answering your viewer questions. For Roto Experts, I'm Mike Cardano. It's Indy at San Diego tonight. Enjoy the game, everyone.